So now that we know how to basically sew a seam using paper anyway, and we know how to thread our machine, now I'm going to show you how to thread on fabric. So I have some fabric here that we used in class, and it's kind of a really thick, easy to manage fabric. It's kind of a training fabric. So I have two pieces. What I want to do is line up the edges. The edges are perfectly lined up. Now, anytime you're sewing two pieces of fabric together, you want to make sure that you're using pins. So I'm going to take some pins. They go in the fabric. Let's see here. In the fabric and out of the fabric, like so. It's a little hard to see with the lighting. And you're going to put pins in every couple of inches. You don't want too many, but you want enough to hold it together. So about every 2 inches is a good place for pins. All right, so I'm going to get my pins in. And now I'm going to be ready to sew. When you're starting to sew, one of the things that you want to remember is that you don't want to sew over the pins. So I'm going to start by pulling my first pin. Now notice the heads are on the outside of the fabric, so it makes it very easy to pull the pins. Okay, so now I'm going to turn you towards the machine. Okay, so my machine is threaded. My thread is in the back. What I'm going to do is take the edge of my fabric and I'm going to line it up, in this case on the edge of my tape. And that what the tape says on my needle plate says there's a 5/8 seam allowance. So I'm going to position it at the edge of my fabric. I'm going to lower my needle using my needle position button. I'm going to lower my presser foot. I'm now ready to sew. I'm going to hold on to this piece of thread at least the first couple of inches. And oh, by the way, when you're starting to sew, if it's the first time you've sewn after you've threaded your machine, you're only going to have one thread to deal with. Thereafter, you're always going to have two threads. Okay, so I'm going to hold on to this thread. I'm going to sew forward a couple of inches, or a couple stitches, I mean, just like we did on paper. Now I'm going to back up a couple of stitches. And remember, what I've done is reinforced my seam so it won't come undone. And now I'm going to hold on to this thread. I'm just going to continue sewing. I'm lining up the edge of my fabric with the edge of that tape or a line that you've selected. Notice I'm getting close to a pin. So I'm going to pull that pin so I don't sew over the top of it. Then I'm going to just continue. Coming close to another pin, I'm going to pull it. Next pin, I've stopped. I'm going to pull the pin. Continuing. Another pin, I want to stop, pull that pin. Okay, I'm getting down to the edge of my fabric. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to back it up 3 to 5 stitches. I'm going to go forward 3 to 5 stitches. Make sure the needle is in the up position. Raise the presser foot and pull back. Notice you now have 2 threads. Oops. So I'm going to cut the threads, leaving plenty hanging behind the machine. And then my next step is to go back and cut these threads close to my fabric. And I've just sewn a seam on fabric.